What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. I am James Lynch. He is JHK. If you never watched the show before, basically we preview an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, we're going to be talking about a fight that was just announced a few days ago. Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori, going to be taking place when? It's going to be taking place in October 23rd. So we got lots of time. This is always a sort of an early preview of these fights. Sometimes the fights never materialize, but I'm going to knock on wood here. I think we're going to be good to go for this one, but we're excited to dive into this one. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Easy way to support the channel. After we do the breakdown, we'll be answering questions. It can be about anything, but it would be great if they would also be on the fight we're talking about as well. John, how's it going, man?
Good, man. I'm excited to break this fight down. I think it's one of the most exciting matchups in this time right now, man. The styles that they have is crazy.
Yeah, it's an awesome fight. Let's start first with how we got here in terms of the matchup. It's a bit of a weird one, right? Both fighters are coming off losses to Israel Adesanya, which, I mean, you kind of think about that. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess that is true. In the case of Costa, I'm still trying to figure out this whole thing as to why he's not fighting next Saturday at the time we're recording this against Jared Cannonier. Cannonier told me it was contract related. Then we saw on social media something about him getting a hair transplant. I don't know what the deal is. Either way, I'm glad to see him back fighting because this is something I talked about, I think, on some other shows as well. I don't think Paulo Costa's stock could be any lower than it is right now in his career. This is a guy who's undefeated. He had the win over Yoel Romero. Said he was going to go out there and knock out Israel Adesanya. He gets finished, and he has been on the sidelines ever since. So he needs to fight. This makes a lot of sense. Vettori, of course, losing to Adesanya in the title fight as well in his last bout. So that's why we're here. We got two really important middleweights in the division, and it's a big fight for both of them because the loser of this fight, John, is going to be further back towards that sort of that gatekeeper status, and the winner is going to be right in the mix there. Although, like I said, both fought Adesanya last. It's going to be a little bit before they get their shot. So just your thoughts on how this matchup came together and then the fight itself.
Yeah, earlier this year, Costa was supposed to fight Whitaker, and he got sick. I don't remember what the sickness was. And then, like you said, he was supposed to fight next weekend, but he's not. And he withdrew from that. And you said it was contract related. Then we saw some kind of post about him getting a hair transplant or something weird like that, right? I don't even know if that was photoshopped or not. Do you have any idea if that was real?
It looked real to me. And well, I don't know. You never know with the internet these days, but I interviewed Jared Cannonier. I have a clip on my channel, youtube.com/LynchOnSports. I flat out asked him, what was the reason you were given? He said it was contract issues. And if you remember, there's some Jake Paul stuff going on. He talked about the fighter pay. That could be it. But then I just wonder, why are we now here with this fight? Did they figure it out? Like, what's the deal there? It's just either way, it's really hurting Costa's stock because he's coming off a TKO loss.
It is hurting his stock, and yeah, that's very confusing. Why he didn't fight Cannonier, but he's fighting Vettori? Maybe because this next weekend's a main event, right? So I don't know, it's very, very odd, like how we got here. But hey, I think this is a more exciting matchup than the Cannonier fight, so it's all good.
1A and 1B. That's what I'll say. I mean, they're both good fights. I was looking forward to the Cannonier fight because obviously he was going to stay standing. This will probably stay standing as well. We don't have odds for this fight, but if I had to guess right now, and we'll dig into this a little bit deeper, I think Marvin Vettori is going to be the favorite. And the reason I say that is for a couple of reasons. Number one, Vettori, if we're looking at MMA math here, Vettori went the distance with Adesanya. Costa was finished. So there's that. Number two, the layoff. Costa, that fight he had against Adesanya was back in September of 2020. Vettori, since September 2020, has fought, he's fought 3 times, actually. So 2 times, actually. My math's not very good. No, 3, December, April, and then in June. So if I had to guess, I think Vettori is going to be a slight favorite. I actually did an article on this on MMA Surge. If I had to cap it, I think he might be like a -150. I think it'll be close because Costa's just got the one loss to Adesanya. The one thing that I think Costa will always keep him sort of in that, can he win? Can he do it? Is the fact that he has not only stoppage wins over Uriah Hall, but he also has a win over Yoel Romero, which I know some felt like that was, too close for comfort, but that's still a great win on your resume. So I think that will carry Costa in being a very, close, it'll be a close odds sort of going into the fight there. So do you agree with that? I mean, we're going to get our picks a little bit later, but do you think that people will put Vettori as the favorite?
I think so. I think Vettori is the favorite. I believe Costa pulling out of 2 fights earlier this year and being so inactive, because if you think about it, since 2019, he's only fought once. Against the champ. That's it, man. And it's right now we're sitting at what they're going to fight in October 2021. That's 2 years basically. he's only fought once. You know what I mean? Like inactivity plays a big role in those odds.
Let's get to the tail of the tape here with Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa, I almost said Acosta. That's not correct. Costa is 13-1, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 72-inch reach. Marvin Vettori is 28 years old, 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach. So Vettori, like he's got like a 2-inch reach advantage. Costa's a little bit taller. Kind of what I'm getting at. These guys are pretty similar in terms of their physical stature as well. I mean, these are two guys I think who could also, theoretically fight at 205 if they wanted to. They're very big guys in terms of their physical stature. So there we go. That's what we got as far as the tail of the tape. Now, in terms of Paulo Costa, we talked about it there. The last fight was the loss against Israel Adesanya. Prior to that, he had the win over Yoel Romero, had a win over Uriah Hall, finished Johnny Hendricks. And then this is where things get a little bit interesting here, John, because, people talk about how great Costa was. And I remember going into that Adesanya fight, I think you and I even talked about this. There's a lot of people picking Costa to knock out Adesanya. And I just felt like experience has got to play something into this, because you look at some of these wins that he's gotten to no fault of his own, but Gareth McClellan, Olawale Bambos, Johnny Hendricks. I mean, these are guys that are not UFC mainstays, and he's got wins over them. And let's also not forget he was on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, and he ended up losing that third season via a split decision. So, I mean, Costa, you look at him, he's a physical specimen. He's got knockout power. He's very fast. He's a guy that, I think is what fans want to see. He's an exciting fighter, but I do wonder the level of experience that he's had in terms of the level of competition throughout his career, if that's something to kind of take a little bit of a pause with. Because like I said, he's got the Romero win, but then when he gets that step up ahead of that against, a guy like Adesanya, he looked bad in that fight, John. And it's not taking anything away from Israel, but I just feel like Israel it looked like he was levels ahead of Paulo Costa in that fight. Just your thoughts on Costa and what he brings to the table in this fight.
With Paulo Costa, you always knew about him since the tough Brazil season. You knew a guy, he's big, he's built, he has power, he's willing to brawl. And we saw that in a lot of knockouts after knockouts of, like you said, like mid-level guys. And then he fought Johnny Hendricks, the former welterweight champion, moving up to middleweight in the twilight of his years. And he goes in there, and I think Johnny Hendricks did pretty decent against him while he lasted in the cage against a younger, faster, stronger, more powerful guy, but eventually got knocked out. And then he went to fight Uriah Hall, which was one of the best fights of the season, I thought, or not season, best fights of the year, because those guys went at it. And one thing about Paulo Costa is that I think a lot of people kind of try to pigeonhole him as like this certain type of striker, but dude is pretty diverse in his combinations. He likes to work the body. He throws a lot of kicks, especially like that right kick to the body. Like he's very diverse. He doesn't really use the elbow so much, but the knees, he loves the knees. He used that against Johnny Hendricks, and he went in there and knocked out Uriah Hall, man. At that moment, I thought Uriah Hall was up, in this upward trajectory at that moment too. He was doing really well. He kind of got over the hump at that time, but Uriah Hall stopped all that, or Paulo Costa stopped all that. And then he went in there against Romero and put on, like, the first round of that fight was one of the craziest rounds I've ever seen in the history of this sport, right? I think Paulo Costa drops Romero, and then Romero looks like he drops Paulo Costa, but if you really look at it and watch the replay, Paulo Costa slips and he gets hit in the neck, and it looks like he gets dropped. But the rest of the round was insane. They go back and forth and just throw bombs, man. And one thing about Paulo Costa, he'll take a few to land a few. And I think that's what makes him so exciting. I don't know about the level of competition. I think he's proven in his last couple of fights that he can last with the best guys in the division. He just laid a goose egg against Adesanya. I think he just didn't fight like he normally fights against Adesanya, and Adesanya got in his head, and he started talking inside the cage and playing around too much when he should have been fighting. And if you notice, Adesanya didn't play into all the talking. He was focused, man, on his game plan and working his game plan. And once Adesanya gets in the flow and gets his distance right, it's game over, man. Like, the dude is, a specialist. He's one of the geniuses of the sport. So yeah, with Paulo Costa, man, I'm so interested to see what Paulo Costa we get, because that's his first loss of his career, the first time he's been finished, and he's coming back against a guy like Marvin Vettori, who's a monster, man. It's not like it's an easy out for him.
What's interesting, you kind of touched on it there, is about how he was kind of out of his element in the Adesanya fight, and then we heard the excuse after about the wine. It's kind of interesting that he's fighting a guy in Marvin Vettori who kind of had the same sort of like when he said stuff, you're kind of like, what? Talking about how he thought he beat Adesanya. Like at some point, you got to look back and go, okay, maybe I'm wrong about some of these things, or maybe I just was beaten by the better guy. So
I thought you were gonna say, he made the excuse of wine, and then he's facing the guy with Vettori who comes from wine country.
Wine country, like, that too. Yeah,
Italy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true.
Lame joke.
I'm not that clever. But anyways, yeah, we mentioned it there. Vettori, we'll go into him, whatever. From Italy, could have had the opportunity to be the first UFC Italian champion. Did not happen. Lost to Adesanya in a fight that really wasn't that close. I mean, the one thing to his credit is that I don't think Vettori, like, he wasn't like dominated in the fight in the sense that like he didn't take a ton of damage in that fight. He was basically just outclassed in that matchup. And I think Adesanya had every answer to whatever it was that Vettori was going to bring to the table there. I mean, we watched that fight together. It was pretty clear that Adesanya had won the fight. And there was a lot of pressure on Adesanya going into that fight, coming off the loss to Jan Blachowicz as well. Now, Vettori, prior to that, had the win over Kevin Holland. Really good win there with Holland. He was sort of one of the more popular fighters last year with how many times he was fighting. And I know he was coming off the loss to Brunson. But he, I think it was that, or was it the other way around? Was Holland fight Brunson after? Let me just double check here. Holland fought, he lost to Brunson decisively, then fought Vettori. I think most people knew Vettori was going to win that fight. Again, just based off what he's been doing. The fight that I look at for Vettori, to me, I think the most impressive win he's had to date is the Jack Hermansson fight. Because if you remember, Hermansson had that nice win over Calvin Gastelum. Prior to that, looked like he was turning things around a bit, and Vettori just destroyed him. Like he finished him in this, he didn't finish him, but he, definitely won the stand-up battle. He hurt Hermansson's orbital bone early in that fight. He actually broke it early on. So I remember Hermansson telling me that he was basically fighting with one eye most of the fight. So, Vettori put it on him and looked super impressive in that one. And that was a really sort of big win for him. And that was sort of the point I knew that this is a guy that, could be a contender. And that's clearly why he was able to get the Adesanya fight just 2 fights later after that. Prior to that, he had the submission win over Carl Roberson. Nothing against Carl Roberson, but if you look at his resume, he's been submitted a lot, but that's still a very big win there because he had a couple canceled fights. Darren Stewart twice with Roberson, gets Roberson again, fights him there. Had the win over Andrew Sanchez, beat Cesar Ferreira, and then lost to Adesanya in a split decision, which there's a lot of revisionist history on that fight. I thought Adesanya clearly won, but because people see split, they're like, oh, I thought Marvin, people never, it's like they don't go back and watch it. So there's that. So he had a bit of a slow start to his UFC career. If you remember, he beat Alberto Uda, lost to Antonio Carlos Jr. Mind you, 9 times out of 10, he fights Carlos Jr. Now he probably beats him, beat Vitor Miranda, and went to a draw with Akhmedov. So a bit of a rough start, but after that, he's really leveled up. And I think part of that as well is just the time he's been putting in with Rafael Cordero at Kings MMA. I mean, we've seen a huge improvement there. And who's one of his main training partners? It's Calvin Gastelum. So I think iron's been sharpening iron. I think Vettori's looked great. And like I said, even though he did lose to Adesanya, it wasn't the type of fight where, he was in any danger of getting finished. He lost to a better fighter. And I think Adesanya just showed that he's levels above as well. So it's going to be an interesting fight. There was a point where I remember thinking like, what type of fighter are we going to get with Vettori? But that Jack Hermansson fight really sort of changed my tune. So just your thoughts on Marvin Vettori as a fighter and what he brings to the table in this fight.
You mentioned earlier about Costa and his strength of schedule. And he hasn't fought as much as Vettori in the UFC. But if you look at Vettori's strength of schedule, there could be some doubts about that too, because he should have more finishes, right? Throughout his career. If he's at that level, right? If he's at that championship caliber. And I'm kind of disappointed in that a little bit because I felt like some of those fights he should have went in there and dominated and beat those guys because that's how skilled he is. But he hasn't, who's the last guy he finished? He finished Carl Roberson with a submission. You would think he's basically a striker, right? And he goes in there and submits the guy. I don't know. It's kind of a trip. Like you said, Jack Hermansson, that was the breakout fight that he had. And in that fight, you interviewed him, I interviewed him. We know Hermansson broke his orbital or got his orbital broken by Vettori. And that's kind of the reason why Vettori ran off with that fight, right? If you want to make an excuse, if you want to put that out there, but without that, he had a great performance. He landed 164 strikes, significant strikes, which is pretty insane, and beat the hell out of Jack Hermansson for 5 rounds. So that was a great fight. The Kevin Holland fight, it lacked, man. I think it lacked. He had 11 takedowns in that fight, and he couldn't finish Kevin Holland. It's like, come on, dude. but he earned a title shot with that, which is pretty insane to me. And he goes in there against Adesanya, and I felt like Vettori was going to go in there different, but he didn't go in there really any different than he did in the first fight. And he got 4 takedowns in that fight. He didn't really do nothing with it. You remember that one time he took his back? I just watched the fight. And he was just, I think he was nervous. I don't know what was going on because he was just trying to go after the neck. He didn't even try to get position, and that allowed Adesanya to get out. And that was the closest Adesanya was in danger in that fight. Adesanya was pretty much toying with him for 5 rounds. You know what I mean? He was grabbing his ass and like faking like he got hurt. You know, like it was embarrassing in some ways, man, like the way that he was doing that to him. And man, Vettori, I feel like if he rewatches that fight, that's going to brew something in him even more because he's an emotional guy, man. And I like that. I like to see that emotion. And man, I can't wait to this fight coming up.
I like to see it too when you're, have something to be emotional about, like this whole thing about how he felt he won the fight. Like, dude, get over that. He's even got his teammates. You see Giga Chikadze come out and say, I don't know how people thought Adesanya won. Dude, you train with the guy. We get it. Like, but don't sit here and try and convince us. Like, this is not, like, if you look at the MMA decisions, no one scored that fight for Vettori. At least I haven't checked, but I'm almost positive no one would have scored that for him. So it's going to be interesting. Like we mentioned, I think the odds are going to be pretty close here. I do see this as kind of a 50-50 fight. I already saw someone in the chat saying that Paulo Costa is going to knock out Vettori. I don't think that happens here. The one thing you do have to look at here is you look at all the fights that Vettori's had. He's never been finished. And granted, there's been plenty of situations in the UFC where someone has, not been finished and they've been finished. So, I mean, that can happen. But to me, okay, so first off, I'm picking Vettori in this fight. I'm going with the betting favorite here for a couple of the reasons I already mentioned. The activity level of Vettori has been a little bit stronger. Level of competition, I think, has been a little bit stronger as well. And I think also just the fact that Costa generally does not go the distance. He's got one decision win, if I'm not mistaken, and that was the one against Yoel Romero. I don't think that's going to bode well in a 5-round fight with a guy like Vettori who's, is used to going the distance, and a guy that is also tough to finish. Like, if Costa can't go out there and take off Vettori's head, what's going to happen? Do you realistically see him winning a decision? I don't. He's just not that type of guy. He's a guy that typically will, like I said, finish it, whether it's, mainly on the feet, will, try and knock you out. But I just don't see him going like, in the 5th round of him being a guy it's going to continue to put the pressure on here, right? This is the main event. It is the main event. So it is 5 rounds. So I think in some ways that favors Vettori just because he just went in there with the champ in his last fight, 5 rounds, and wasn't finished in that one. I just don't think Costa's going to be able to do the same thing. So what I will say is, while I am picking Vettori, I do want to warn people that I think this is a fight that could be 50-50. This almost seems like a Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie type thing where, we've got a guy in Costa who maybe he's gotten better since the last time we saw him, right? I don't know. He's got a great coach and Captain Eric, who I assume he's been working with for this camp. I mean, that guy's a genius. We'll see what he can come to the table with. But right now, on paper, from what we have as far as the evidence, I have to go Vettori in this one. But I think I'm going to take him by decision because Vettori doesn't finish fights. He just doesn't. I mean, it's just not like you mentioned. Colin was a fight he should have finished. Jack Hermanson, the guy's he's Terminator, in that fight, and you can't put him away. Like, there's just something about him, like you mentioned, and even like you mentioned, the Adesanya fight, was he nervous? There's something lacking with him in terms of some of that killer instinct. And maybe he submits Paulo Costa. I don't know. We've never really seen Costa on the ground, but I just think it's going to end up being a decision. So the pick's going to be Marvin Vettori, and we'll see what the odds are like as well. So, John, where are you going on this one?
Marvin Vettori, some things that he has going for himself, I think, in this fight is that he's a southpaw, you know what I mean? And he's aggressive and he's tough as hell. And like you said, he has cardio for days. He can go 5 rounds. He can go a hard 15. You know what I mean? Like, that's the questions about Paulo, right? Can Paulo go 25? He's never went 25. He's never had a main event. I think this is his first main event besides the Adesanya fight, which ended in the 2nd round. So those things you got going for Marvin. And Marvin, if you look at it, he's a strategic guy too. You know what I mean? He's a guy that will follow a game plan and work to that game plan, to a T, almost to a fault. Like you said, it will last for 5 rounds, you know what I mean? And he'll win a decision. So he does have that going for him. He does have a longer reach than Costa too, which is kind of weird because, I thought Costa would have the longer reach, but you know what I mean? It's, and Costa's taller, but he has those T-Rex arms. It doesn't matter. Hair plug Paulo. That's his new name. I'm going with him. You know why? Is because Marvin's going to march forward. And he's going to march forward. And he's going to try to box with them. And Paulo's just too tough, man. I think The knockout made him realize that he's not invincible. So he's going to be a little bit smarter, but he's still going to be himself. And I think that's the learning lesson from that title fight is like, I got to still be myself if I want to win these fights against the top level guys, because he went in there and he wasn't himself. So he's going to march forward just like he did against Yoel Romero. If you're not afraid of Yoel Romero, then who are you afraid? You know, I don't want to use the word afraid. You know what I mean?
No,
But,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. If you can go toe to toe with a guy like Romero, then obviously Vettori's going to be much easier.
Exactly. You will go to toe to toe with Vettori, man. Vettori's going to march forward. He's going to try to use his angles, but Paulo, man, he digs to the body hard. He kicks super hard to the body. I think that's the key for him is work that body, Vettori's body, work it hard, and then just go headhunting. And that's what he's going to do. He's going to do that from the first round. I see him doing that. I see Marvin kind of getting sucked into that a little bit himself, getting emotional, because Paulo's going to, do his little like, I don't know what you want to call it, irritating antics, right? You know what I mean? He does that to everybody, I believe. So I see Paulo going in there, hair plug Paulo. He's a new man. You know what I mean? He's sexier than ever against Vettori and going in there. And I see him finishing Vettori. I think Vettori gets finished in this fight. I don't know if it's going to be early or not, but I think, it's probably going to be inside that three rounds. But if it goes past that 3 rounds, I'm very skeptical if Paulo can last that long, you know what I mean? Because he does have a lot of muscle, like Joe Rogan likes to say, you know what I mean? It takes a lot of, lactic acid or whatever. So can he last? I don't know, but I don't think he needs that much time. I think he goes in there, sucks Vettori in, and, takes him out.
There you go. So once again, John and I are on opposite sides of the fence here. I'm going Vettori. He's going Paulo Costa. Can see both sides of it, honestly. And I feel like if it does stay standing for most of it, I think you would maybe have to give the edge to Costa. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Let's get to the chat here. Euro, what is good, fellas? Good to hear from you, Euro. Let's get to his first question. He says, thoughts on Gaethje, Chandler, Islam, RDA, early picks. Give me Gaethje and RDA with the upset. We'll obviously be doing, in-depth previews of this, but off the top of my head, I would also go Gaethje and I would go Islam over RDA. Just the style matchup for RDA. I don't see it boding well for him, but we'll dig into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think I'll take Gaethje and I like RDA in that fight. I think RDA is just too veteran for Islam. I think RDA, he's an all-around fighter, man. Like, he can go anywhere. He can actually wrestle with the wrestlers. That's the difference maker, I think, compared to whoever else Islam has fought in the past. Like, there's not many guys. Most guys want to strike with them, and then when they do get taken down, they just can't do anything. I think RDA is different. He has the jiu-jitsu, high-level jiu-jitsu, and he has the striking and the power to match. So I like RDA in that fight. Early pick. And Gaethje, man, it's hard to pick against Gaethje, right? It's just, the guy is just a monster.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely be previewing those in the coming weeks. Unacceptable Chattery. What is the realistic chance of Dan Hardy fighting in 1? John, you know better than me.
I think it's very realistic. I just talked to him, and he said that he spoke with the brass and they're going to get on the phone this week and try to iron out a deal for him to fight John Wayne Parr, cage Muay Thai. It's not even MMA. And Dan was saying, if I don't have to train the grappling, there's so much less of a chance of me getting injured at all if I'm just working my stand-up. And he said his first true love was Muay Thai anyways, so he would love to come back. And, when he was offered fights against Jim Miller and Joe Lauzon, it just didn't pique his interest, man. And also, he didn't want to cut down to 155. In one championship, he could fight at 170, and it's no problem, right? And then also they have he said he was interested in fighting like kickboxing and MMA, and there's a lot of options there, and different rule sets, and that interests him the most. I think it's a high chance. I think there's a 90% chance that he's going to be fighting for one championship and doing stuff for them besides that.
So he got out of his UFC contract then, because I believe even when he retired, he still had fights. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. He did get released. I do wonder. I guess it's a little bit different overseas, but does he not have a heart issue? I think that's been the whole reason he hasn't been able to fight in the UFC. Well,
he was cleared by doctors a few years back.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think the heart issue is something that's worrying him right now. It's just coming back to something he wants to do, because think about it right now. He has broadcasting, he has that full reptile stuff going on. So he's really busy, being successful in many ways, right? So fighting is something that if he goes back to it, it has to be something that interests him. You know what I mean? Gets him up in the morning to train.
I don't know how he'd ever make 155. He's a big guy. I've seen him
never
at events and stuff. J-Spec Driver, good morning to you as well. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good long weekend. Roman, thoughts on Ali's statement that Islam should fight for the title after RDA? I don't know where Ali, I'm going to miss that or whatever, but that would not surprise me that he says he's going to fight for it. Yeah, he would, in my opinion, even if he goes out there and, flatlines RDA in the first round, I think he still needs one more. Right? Yeah. Like RDA is really nothing against Thiago Moises. I know he was ranked, but I don't know. I think he needs two notable names to get that title shot, in my opinion. So my thoughts are Ali's always going to go to bat for his clients. They wanted him to fight Oliveira after he beat Drew Dober.
Yeah.
So it's like, that just goes to show you the mentality, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're his manager, you're going to say that because you want to push your guy as quickly up as possible. And, he's got the Habib rub. So, but like you said, realistically, he beats RDA. He needs to beat somebody else. He needs to beat like a Benil Dariush, who's ranked number 3, or even the Chandler Gaethje winner, maybe, who knows? But, you haven't even really heard anything about Oliveira and Poirier fighting. It's just, not
just
even
the Mike Bond report that apparently we're going to do it in Louisiana, but I haven't heard anything since then. So
Louisiana,
yeah, didn't you hear that?
No, I didn't even hear that. What?
Yeah,
why would they do it in Louisiana? Like,
because that's where Poirier is from.
I know, but I'm saying
well, maybe yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's not really fair to Oliveira. If he was the champ and Oliveira was fighting him, I could see that. But yeah, I know what you mean. So maybe it's like, I don't know. Maybe they're giving him the good treatment. Like, thanks for fighting Connor twice. I don't know.
Breaking his leg.
Euro. If Colby loses, what's next? Do you think he goes to WWE one day?
Nah, I
don't know if he goes to WWE. I do wonder where he goes from here if he loses this fight, because he's always, and look, most people don't believe this, but I mean, the whole referee thing, the whole early stoppage thing, there are people who still run with that. So there's always that in his back pocket in terms of him getting this rematch. But if he loses again, it's not like he's going to go to 185. It's not like he can go to 155. Like, he's in a really tough spot. And it's also been just a struggle to get him a fight as well. So I don't know. I don't know what his contract status is. Again, he does not have a manager. So it wouldn't shock me if he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna go do something else. I don't know. We'll see. I honestly can't answer that. I don't know.
I think Colby, if he does lose, I could see him just taking like one fight a year, just, fights that are interesting. Because like you said, he's just too big for 155. He's too small for 185. I don't really see where he goes. I think Usman's going to be a champ for a little bit. So would he wait around? And but the thing about it is, like, he hasn't fought any of the guys in the top 10.
Yeah.
So if he does lose, he can fight. There's a gang of guys he can fight. There's 9 guys, right? He can fight. So I guess there's possibilities for him. But Colby seems like a guy that if he's not moving forward, like, he doesn't want to continue the path, right? So who knows, man? You would know better than me. You talk.
Yeah, I don't even know the answer to that. It's there's a lot on the line here in this November fight, so we'll see what happens. Antoine, good morning, fellas. With all the new fight announcements, how do you see Kara France versus Garbrandt going in December, and could you give some early betting odds? I think Garbrandt will be the favorite just because he's a former champ. Yeah. If that's the case, I'm putting some money on Kai Kara France because, and actually Submission Radio, so I just interviewed him. I didn't have a chance to watch that this morning. But yeah, I think I'm glad they did this. I'm really glad they did this because I think it's a slap in the face of the division. If you have a guy who's coming off a loss, getting a title shot, if Garbrandt wins this, he's getting the title shot. I don't think there's any question about that. But Kai Kara France, man, like that's an interesting fight because we'll see how Garbrandt's chin holds up at 125. I know a lot from everyone I've talked to at Alpha Male. They're like, yeah, Cody will make 125, no problem. It's not a big deal. He's a smaller bantamweight, but you do wonder with that damage he's taken if that's going to be a factor. So we'll see. In terms of a pick, I would go Kara France because he's the mainstay at 125. He's been there forever. He knows how to, like, you're putting a lot of stock into a guy that hasn't really looked himself. Yes, he got the win over Assunção. But I mean, Assunção's sort of a shell of his former self as well. So yeah, I would say the odds would be, I think Garbrandt will be the favorite. I think he'll be like maybe a minus 200, minus 150 favorite if I had to guess, just because that's how people are. They look at him, former champ, knockout power, popular guy. He did have some good wins prior to that. He's got a win over Dominic Cruz, right? But I think people are going to cling a little too much on the past, and they'll make him the betting favorite if I had to guess. What do you think?
Yeah, if I had to pick, I would, like you said, Garbrandt would be the betting favorite, but I would pick Carl France easy. Yeah, he's made the weight a bunch of times, and the thing is, like Garbrandt, that beating that he took from Rob Font, you know, what kind of effects is that going to have on him? And then now he's going to cut an extra 10 pounds. You know, everybody can say that he can make the weight pretty easy, but we don't know until he actually makes the weight, right? You know, if he does make the weight. So is this a main event? Is this going to be a main event?
Let's
Is there any
see.
word on that?
I don't let me have a quick look here as far as what they have it as. I could see it being a main event just because of who Garbrandt is, but
They said what?
they just say main
November,
card for now. So we'll
okay,
see. It's
so I
still
guess it's not a
it's
main
in
event.
December, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Well, I want to see like how Garbrandt does against Carl France. I remember I was talking to Brandon Royval recently, and I asked him about Garbrandt going down to 125, and he said,
he's like, it
"What?
makes 0 sense.
Yeah, he's zero
I think
sense."
he
He's
gave
like,
me the
even
same
if he
quote.
beats Carl France, like that doesn't make any sense. You know, like why? You know who? You know, Brandon Royval beat Kai Kara France. So he said like he's ranked like number 8. Like, well, how could he get a title shot? He's like, fuck Cody Garbrandt. And I was like, damn, we're getting a
Oh, I
little
don't know,
spicy
guys.
right
It'd
now.
be no different than like, the media equivalent of this would be like if someone just came in from like, well, in some ways it's like, what's his name, who's doing the show at DC? The guy has, he's a fan of MMA, and because he played in the NFL or whatever, he gets to do his own show. He's way ahead of the rest of us. We've been
That's
grinding for
true.
years, and this guy just, 2 steps over to
Did
an
you see
ESPN
that
job.
there's more down
Yeah,
votes
yeah,
for
yeah.
that? Then that's crazy, dude.
Well, they
Like,
got to look at that and be like, come on, like, because the thing is, you're not going to fool the MMA audience. Like, they know what
mhm.
they're watching. They want, people that are established in this industry. They don't want some newcomer coming in here, unless it was someone that was like really popular that like before that. But I've never even heard of that guy until he started co-hosting the show. What they should have done was DC and Chell. That was an easy fix. You save money by just doing the 2 of them on one show. So I don't know why they didn't do it, but
They should have done DC and Laura Sanko. They should have done that. I think
yeah.
that they know each other. It seems like they have good chemistry. If you watch their like pre-weigh-in show or whatever,
Mhm.
they're drinking beers together and all kinds of stuff, right? So that would have been a good mix. I mean, I think she needs the opportunity. Why not?
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. Let's go to Max here. Marvin overrated, Costa better striker, wrestler knocks Marvin out. Well, there you go. There's someone who shares your sentiment. I don't think Costa or Vettori will be the same after the Adesanya losses. Euro. Well, that's 2 losses for Vettori to Adesanya, but we'll see. We'll see.
No,
Again,
I think those guys will be all right. I mean, it's not like they took like life-threatening beatings from Adesanya. I mean, I think they can come back strong. I mean, it's not like they're super old either. Like these guys are developing fighters, man. So don't give up on these guys so quickly, man.
Antoine, do you guys think Calderwood versus Grasso will be a main event, and who do you have in that fight? I don't know. It's a fight night card that they're on, right? Let me have a quick look at that. I don't think that isn't just off the top of my head. That doesn't seem like a main event they would put together.
I think they might do it as a main event, to be honest with you.
It's main card for now. It depends how the rest of the card fills out.
Yeah.
Well, remember they had, who is it? Jessica I had in that card.
Exactly.
Remember against. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You saw the backlash to that, people being like, I don't know if I want to, So I don't know. We'll see what they decide to do. My pick all day is Joanne Calderwood.
What about the ratings that came out of last weekend's UFC card versus?
Yeah, so I talked to Jim West about that. We did our Victory Loves Company podcast yesterday, and I have a couple theories on that. So I think part of it, and this is nothing against Sean Strickland and Uriah Hall, I think part of it was the Olympics are on and people are channel flipping. It's on ESPN. People are already watching TV as well. I think that helped with the fact that I think people are already watching the Olympics and they were kind of going back and forth. People look at Bellator's ratings, they're like, oh, how come it's so low? Well, not everyone gets Showtime. We don't even get Showtime here in Canada. To watch Bellator, we have to watch it on YouTube. I don't know how it is for you over there, but Showtime is a premium channel in the US as well, so you have to pay extra for it. So,
yeah,
as great as it is that Bellator is, on this same platform as this big boxing thing, I think Paramount was a better fit because most people have Paramount, whereas with Showtime, you have to pay so much extra because you get all the TV shows and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I don't have Showtime. I wish I did. So I have to go to Japan to watch Bellator on TV, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you have to fly to Japan to go watch it. No,
exactly.
Who do you like in Grasso and Calderwood? I like Calderwood all day.
I think Grasso, she's kind of like transitioned into more of a striker now, I think that's bad for her in this matchup because Calder-Wood's a very high level striker. You know what I mean? We do have Valentina Shevchenko in that division, but next to her, Calder-Wood is one of the better strikers in that division, and very, very technical. And I think that technique is gonna pretty much overtake Grasso. Grasso's still kind of green with the striking.
PayPal My Money DFS. What a name. Costa needed time for his scalp to heal. Again, I need to see like more than just one photo to know if that was like a real thing. Maybe it was.
Hair plug Paulo, man. Let's get it in.
Not sure. If Gaslam loses, do you think he is done? He's won one fight since Adesanya lost. That is an interesting one, right? If he loses this fight, yeah, where the heck does he go? Like, I always think welterweight was the better weight class, but he's just like, he struggles to make middleweight. Strickland kind of alluded to this in my interview with him that, and actually, I can't remember. Yeah, I think I have. I think it's coming out this week in the pros picks, where he talks about Calvin just being not disciplined with his diet and all that stuff, and just like, so that's going to hurt him. And unfortunately, if you want to fight in the echelon, you got to have every box checked, and that includes your diet and your conditioning and all that stuff. So, I think he is going to lose to Jared Cannonier, and I think maybe they give him, but I don't know. I think they'll give him one more just because it's a main event. But we're almost getting to that point where how can you justify keeping him around if he's losing so much?
Did we preview that fight?
I don't know, because it was switched up. I think it was supposed to be. Remember, it was supposed to be Cannonier Costa. Yeah, I don't know if we did that one. I can't remember, but yeah, that's next week.
That's right. That's right. No, I still got Gaslam in that fight. We didn't preview it, but I got Gaslam.
How does he win though? That's my question. How do you
think he's gonna go in there and everybody's gonna be like, oh, he has only won one fight since Adesanya, and then everybody's just gonna be they're just gonna be overlooking him, and that's what always happens. And then he goes in there and does something spectacular. I think he's gonna do something spectacular in this fight coming up. Even though I love Cannonier, but he's coming off a broken arm, right? Like he had a broken arm and he got finished. Did he get finished by Whitaker?
Decision.
No, he survived, dude, with a broken arm. What a tough son of a gun, man. Jesus.
For that exact reason, that's why I think Cannonier is going to win this. I mean, you look at this guy fought with a broken arm against Robert Whitaker, didn't get finished. He knocked out Jack Hermanson, the same Jack Hermanson who submitted Calvin Gastelum very quickly. I think people forget about that loss. I mean, that was an F as far as a grade letter for Calvin Gastelum in that fight. And also, like, he's had prime opportunities to do well. Like, remember he fought Darren Till at UFC 244. Till came in late. There was all this talk about him missing weight, and then it was Gastelum who nearly missed weight himself. Like, Cannonier, and then you look at, Gaslam's got wrestling. Well, Cannonier trains with some good wrestlers at the lab, and he's got good stand-up. I think Cannonier is actually a guy that I think could give Adesanya some problems just with his power. But yeah, I got Cannonier all day in that fight. I'd be shocked if Gaslam pulls that one off, because I think it'll stay standing, and I think Cannonier will either finish him or win pretty decisively on the scorecards. But I like Cannonier all day in that fight. So
that left hand, he got a gun on him though, Gaslam. But yeah, you're right. Cannonier is definitely the favorite headed in.
I don't know if our friend Max over here is just trolling, but he says Kevin Holland will beat Israel. He's worked on his wrestling. He is the future.
Well, he must be working at AKA right now.
No, he is. Wasn't he only there for like
a
week?
I'm saying Max works at AKA.
Oh, this guy, yeah,
right
could be, yeah. Could be, yeah. I don't know. Holland's got a lot of work to do. I mean, you can't get outclassed against a guy like Derek Brunson and then expect to beat Israel Adesanya. It's not going to happen. If Cannonier wins the Joker Cannonier 2, I think it's too soon. Because that fight was in 2019, I think. I think there's other fights to be made. I mean, who's to say with Cannonier's ranking here, if he doesn't just, get the winner of Whitaker and Adesanya, even though he lost his last fight? I don't know. They'll have timing's going to be everything, right? Depends when all these fights gets booked.
I think Cannonier, if he wins, he's going to end up fighting the winner of Till and Brunson. I think that's the fight that they make, because the rest of the lineup is like Costa, Whitaker. Oh, maybe he could fight Costa. I mean, maybe they could rebook that if Costa wins. That could be a title eliminator.
Only if Costa wins, though. You got to do wins and wins.
Oh, yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, yeah.
Of course.
Roman, Chandler Gaethje is like Costa Romero of the lightweight division. Yeah, I see what you mean by that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right.
Similar fighters. Right. Jose Flores. Analogy. Thoughts on Sorry, I skipped over what you're trying to say there. Thoughts on Strickland's performance overall. I mean, Strickland looked great. I mean, this is something that I talked about. I think we talked about in here as well. He's just a really good fighter, and he's like you just saw the pace he put on him and just everything. Like he was on point. He's going to be a problem. He is. I really feel like he's got something that like it's just he's a little like off his tilt a little bit, and I think that translates to how he fights. Like he's a very kind of just in your face, like I'm not going to give you a second to breathe type of guy. I don't necessarily agree with this, but Jim West pointed this out. He says Uriah Hall is an athlete who's not a fighter. Sean Strickland is not an athlete who is a fighter. And what he meant by that is that, Strickland's a guy that literally covers every corner, every edge here when it comes to everything. Like this guy, we had Matthew Jelly on as well yesterday. He was a cornerman of Sean Strickland. And he talked about how, this guy he spars all the time, every day. Like it's just like a repetitive thing for him. So, going in a 5-round fight is nothing, but yeah, great performance. He's going to get a big fight. Apparently Luke Rockhold's on the table. I didn't see Rockhold's interview with Submission Radio yet. I will check that out later, but I don't think that's the type of fight that Rockhold's going to take. For whatever reason, he thinks he should get like an Adesanya or some like big name when he comes back. But Luke's got to realize he's coming off a loss to Jan Blachowicz was it 2019? I think was when he got knocked out in that fight. I think it was. Yeah. So he's got to fight. That's his biggest thing.
I think Luke Rockhold's going to take the Strickland fight because
I hope so. Can you imagine that?
Like
the build up to that?
The hottest commodity right now. Oh, Luke Rockhold's already talking shit. So it's going to be going back and forth. And Strickland, man, he has a funky style, man. Like it's just overwhelming, right? Just overwhelming and just in your face. And I think his vision is so good. That's why he could fight like that. Like he could see things coming, and then he has a very good chin too. You know what I mean? Like the only person that has beaten him recently is who? What? Usman? I think that's the last.
No, it was Dos Santos.
Okay, Dos Santos
defeated him. Oleski, whatever his name is, Dos Santos. That guy.
Okay. Well, he looked great. Hall, man, that was a very disappointing performance by Hall, man. I think Hall was just never in the fight at all, man. Like he just, even in the corner when you watched him as his coach was talking to him, like he was not responsive at all, man. Like it's just like
something was off. He didn't, and it's not taking anything away from Strickland. I just think Hall's like, he reminds me of a little bit Hall OSP in the sense that sometimes Hall looks amazing. This guy's got a knockout win over Gegard Mousasi. And then there's other times where it's just like, what happened? Like, where did this guy go? OSP's the same thing. I think he's got a win over Corey Anderson, and then he's getting flatlined by other guy. Like it's just there's it's very inconsistent. I think is the best way to put Uriah Hall.
You're right. There are a lot of parallels between those two guys, man. They've had some beautiful finishes over just top ranked dudes, and then they go in there sometimes and just doesn't look like, OSP going in there and knocking out Shogun on like a week's notice. That's crazy, right? And then he comes back and loses to someone.
Goes the distance with Jones. I mean, that's a fight where Jones
with
didn't
the broken
great.
arm.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of parallels.
Very interesting.
Roman, I just want to see Waleed, Costa's manager, and Ali go after each other. Oh my God, I'd pay so much money for that just to see them go at it. Two hotheads. It'd be great. Euro Adesanya made both guys delusional. I guess you could make that argument, talking about Costa and Vettori. Jose Flores, why is Whitaker next in line for a decision with Gastelum, but nobody cared when Hermansson submitted him in less than 2 minutes? Look, I was beating the Jack Hermansson drum after he submitted Gastelum, saying that should have got him a title shot, and then they gave him Romero instead. But, obviously they didn't feel like that was enough. The thing with Whitaker, though, is he's probably got the rawest deal out of any former champion. How many former champions have lost a fight? Granted, he got finished in that fight. Wasn't like a controversial decision. Whitaker's fought three top tough guys since losing to Adesanya, and now he's finally getting the rematch. It's like that just is unheard of. You don't hear that happen too often. Usually it's a fight. Some of them get automatic rematches. So I think with Hermansson, he lost to Vettori. That was that. I mean, had he won that, you could make a case there, but with him losing to Vettori, that really set him back. So that's sort of why he's in this sort of
I think Whitaker, it's gonna work out for him better in the end that he gets to fight Adesanya later on, because you remember they said they offered him the title fight like twice in the past like year and a half or something like that, and it just didn't line up time wise. And I'm glad that he didn't rush into the rematches, right? He went out there and got some wins and showed and kind of got to practice what he's been working on in the gym against high level guys. And I think that's going to be very beneficial when he goes in there and fights Israel. I think that's the fight they're going to make. I think they're going to make that at the end of this year. I think it's going to be a blockbuster, like 3 title one of those 3 title,
Yeah.
cards, like in like what, October or maybe November, not December, because they never do that in December. But I see November, a big card happening, and they're going to probably be the main event on that.
Euro early pick, Hamzat or the Leech. The Leech is a sleeper. That is an interesting fight. I got to think if the UFC is giving Hamzat a return fight, they know something we don't. They obviously don't want Jingling Lee to win, because that's, I mean, who's more marketable? It'd be Hamzat Chimaev with his following. Yeah, I'd pick Chimaev. The only sort of thing I take pause at is he got COVID, and to the point of where he thought he was going to retire. Like, it must have been pretty serious. So we'll see how he is when he comes back, and he hasn't fought in a while. So
the Leech, he never says no to a fight. And I think the UFC knows that. So they tossed him Hamzat. But the thing, like you said, the red flag is Hamzat's coming off that COVID, like real serious. And the Leech, man, he always goes in as the underdog and ends up knocking dudes out, man. He's done it many, many times. So it could happen here. You know what I mean? Like, did Hamzat fight welterweight in his last fight? Or was that 185?
No, it was 185. Gerald Mearshart.
You see, that's another red flag, right? Like, he's gonna be
why wouldn't he just come back at 185? I think, didn't they offer him Rockhold or something, and then I don't know what happened.
Exactly. Why didn't he fight Rockhold, man? I think, man, that's a big name too, man. But there must be something behind it. Like you said, the UFC knows something we don't know.
Jose Flores, Waleed would maul Ali in a grappling match. Ali has been submitted a few times in his career. Since we're talking about middleweight, Strickland versus Rockhold is supposed to be set. Who do you guys think wins? I'd have to pick Strickland at this point.
I mean, of course. He'd be the favorite.
Yeah, any vision of what Luke Rockhold used to look like in the Weidman fight, I don't know if that Rockhold even exists anymore. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Strickland is he's the guy, man, right now. He's one of the hottest. He's basically took over what Hamzat was doing, right? Just coming in and just beating off the top guys, man. It's been impressive, man. Strickland.
Euro says, give me Marvin. I think Adesanya really messed Costa's head up. Could happen.
Why is everybody, they love that Israel must be like a witch doctor, right?
Something,
like,
he's convinced everyone in the chat here this as well.
Just messing everybody's head up.
Jose Flores, Muradov is the middleweight dark horse that is not ranked. Well, he's fighting Gerald Mearshart, right?
Yes, that's right.
So we'll see. Mearshart's, a lot of people want to write him off for what happened against Hamzat. He looked good in his last fight. We'll see how that fight goes. But yeah, you could be right. I mean, I don't know. I think there's signs of some things, but not ready to call him a contender just yet. We'll see what happens. Jose Flores, your thoughts on this stat? Combined record of opponents: Khabib at 9-0 was 9-10. Cyril Gane's opponents at 9-0, 114-26. Okay, quick thing got to mention there right off the bat. Khabib wasn't in the UFC at 9-0, I don't think, or at least the first couple fights. So you're not going to get as good a competition. Gane was in the UFC in what, 2 fights? I forget. So that's part of the reason why his record looks a little bit better. But Gane's like just the exception to the rule. Like, this guy, nothing makes sense here. How many fighters have a title shot at just 9 fights and you're undefeated? Yeah, it was 3. It was his 4th professional fight was in the UFC. That's crazy.
The only person that did that was, we mentioned that before, Chris Weidman. He's the only other person at 9-0 that got a title shot and beat one of the greatest of all time. So I can't wait to that fight, man. Oh, we're gonna be doing a little thing on your channel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're doing the watch along on Saturday. So yeah, change of plans. I know last week I said wouldn't be here. I'm gonna be here. Yeah, I'm glad, because I was supposed to go away and weather's not looking too good, and I'm not gonna pay extraordinary amount of money to go golf in the rain. So I figured I'd stay here, and we'll do the live stream. It should be good. So yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern time. 10 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be doing the live stream on my channel, youtube.com/LunchOnSports. I'll be plugging that a little bit later in the week. Jose Flores, UFC 267 is going to be interesting, not only because of the fights, but because of the possible cross paths of Hamzat and Team Khabib. UFC 267. I don't know off heart who's on what card, so I gotta quickly look this up. That's the Blachowicz and Teixeira card. Hamzat's on that card. Sterling and Jan's the co-main event. Yeah, interesting.
That's on Fight Island too, right?
It is. Oh, right, because Hamzat's on that card, and so is Dos Anjos and Makhachev. So should be interesting. That's how you pronounce it now. I was always saying Makhachev. but it's apparently
Yeah,
not that.
yeah.
So.
I've been hearing people say it like that.
Yeah, they said it on the broadcast. J-Spec Driver. Hey, James, I know it's one championship. Thanks for the correction of me saying 1FC on the website URL, 1FC. Why is that? Oh, but the website of the URL is 1FC. Why is that? It's probably just easier to type 1FC, but they went one championship like 10 years ago, didn't they? Or however long ago it was?
Long
It's
time
been a
ago.
while. Do you think Colorado changing rules to accommodate one is a sign of MMA rules progressing towards risen rules or just non-unified dysfunction in the states?
I heard that they're not accommodating one championship though.
Yeah, I got to look more into that, but I think yeah, I mean, it seems like they're being a little bit more progressive with that stuff, like trying to, trying to make some improvements. So yeah, I think it is a sign to kind of answer your question there. So Euro Cody No Love just peaked too early. I think too good, too fast, burnt himself out. Well, he fought tough guys too. I mean, it's not like he's losing to tomato cans or whatever, but that was yeah, Cody, I mean, he has a win over Dominic Cruz. No one can take that away from him. That was a great win. That was probably the best win he's had and may ever have. So see what up. How many more fights do you think will be lost to COVID for Lewis Gane? Hey, I'm knocking on wood. I hope hopefully none get lost. I don't know. I can't predict that. I'm not a fortune teller. What are your thoughts on the potential of Sergey Spivak, the polar bear? I think he's good. I just think need to see a little bit more of him, you know? Seems like he doesn't fight that much.
He's one of the younger heavyweights coming up, man. He just needs to just fight. He just needs to get back over to the States and compete. That's all it is.
Do you think Lauren Murphy has a chance against Valentina? I think the one saving grace with Lauren is the fact that, she's got a lot of experience. Lauren doesn't do anything like amazing. That's the thing. Like, she's just a very well-rounded, like, sort of lunch pail fighter that, like, gets the job done when she needs to. Even that last fight she had against Calderwood was close, right? So I think Lauren has a chance, and Lauren's never been finished, right? So that's another thing. I know, granted, saying that, Caitlin Chukagian and Jessica Eye were never finished either in the UFC, and then Valentina did that. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Lauren, and Lauren's a bigger 125er, right? Like, she used to fight at 135. So we'll see if that plays a factor. I think anyone in any fight has a chance. Anything can happen. Someone can break a leg. Who knows? Like, anything's possible. So of course Murphy has a chance.
Yeah, I think she has a chance. I think if she fights Valentina like the whole fight, like she fought the second round against Joanne Calderwood, I think Lauren Murphy has a really good chance if she could control her on the ground like that and just pummel her. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just, can she do that? Because we've never seen anybody do that to Valentina. But there's always a first for everything.
J-Spec Driver 702. What happens with Patricio Pitbull? Didn't sign an extension yet and lost. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him.
I mean, I'd like to signs him. I say the UFC signs him.
I hope they sign him. That would be a great signing for them. And let's see how good this guy really is. I mean, he's got to win over Chandler. The only thing is, well, no, but, no. But hold on a second. I just realized this though. He's still the champ at lightweight, so I think he's automatically still with the promotion. You can't just run out your contract.
The championship clause. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's back with Bellator regardless. But yeah, I'd like to see him in the UFC to see how he does. Mm-hmm. Where would AJ McKee land in the UFC rankings if he were to be welcomed as Chandler? Great question. Let's look at the top 5 here of featherweight. Yeah, I you know what? I wouldn't have an issue if he was like number 6 where Arnold Allen is. Like, does he beat a Dan Ige? Does he beat a Barbo? Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. He's very good though. Like, just to go and do what he did to Pitbull, considering what Pitbull's done to his last opponents, very impressive. He's young. He's only getting better. He's undefeated. Like, there's never been a moment in his career so far where you're like, okay, remember Valentina when she fought Jennifer Maia, that second round, everyone's fixating on that. Like, oh my God, like she might've lost that round. There's never even been that moment with AJ yet. Like, he's just, everything he's done has been almost flawless for the most part. So that's where you don't know, is he that good? Or is it the fact that obviously he is fighting some subpar competition, but you got wins over Caldwell. You've got wins over now Pitbull. Like, there's a lot to like there about AJ McKee. So I'd put him top 5. I think he'd do. I think even if he lost, I don't think it would be like a blowout. Like, I think he'd do quite well.
Yeah, I think he'd do well. I think, like you said, number 6. I would like to see him fight Calvin Kattar. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that would be a good litmus test for him. Yeah, but I think he still has a lot to prove too. You know what I mean? Even though he did beat Pitbull, who's the pound for pound best at Bellator, he still needs to, face more competition, right? And I'm very interested to see who he faces in his first title defense. But is it going to be the Pitbull rematch? Is it going to be someone else? That's still undetermined. And also, AJ McKee, I think he's supposed to sign a new deal with Bellator soon.
Oh
too.
yeah, he has to. Yeah, and
Happen.
if you're Bellator, you put all your chips on this kid. He is the face of your franchise. You push him out everywhere. Use that Showtime thing. Put him at the Jake Paul fight front row. Like get him out there. Like get him. Make him a megastar. You can do it. You've got the money. You've got a guy who's very easy to market, very charismatic. Like and it's incredible. He's one of the few fighters that's just been homegrown from Bellator that's become this, sensation. So yeah, absolutely do that. Almost forgot. We got to do underdog picks for UFC 265. I have one already off the top of my head. Let me just double check to make sure the underdog. Yeah, still is. My underdog pick this week for UFC 265. Dramatic pause there. It's going to be Angela Hill getting a decision over Tisha Torres. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think Torres is kind of the same fighter she's always been. I know she's, again, I know, Hill's a little bit older, which is actually crazy. You almost feel like they're the same age in some regards, but I know she's only a slight underdog, but I'll take Angela Hill. I think this seems like an opportunity for her to capitalize. She's got the height and reach advantage. I think she'll avoid the wrestling. I think Hill's, made more improvements over the last couple of years than Tisha Torres has. So give me Angela Hill. She's not going to finish the fight. She'll win a decision, and it'll be close, but it'll go Hill's way. Usually it goes the other way, but she'll win this. I was so impressed with what she did against Ashley Yoder in her last fight. I think Hill gets it done.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take Torres in that fight. But my underdog pick, there's so many close fights when you look at the odds. But I'm gonna take Derek Lewis, man. He's at plus 300. What? Yeah, that's a good bet right there. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a pretty decent underdog right there. I'm picking him anyways, or straight out. But I think that's a good underdog pick. And another good underdog pick I'm looking at right now is Jessica Penne versus Carolina. I'm
yes.
I think
that was another one. I actually, I think I took a gander at as well. I thought Carolina was going to get cut after
really. You did?
Well, she's lost. Retired. I mean, she's lost. How many fights has she lost in a row? She's lost 4 fights in a row, and she got destroyed in her last fight against Hyon.
Yeah, she got her face broken apart in that one.
And she's 35. So not supposed to talk about a woman's age, but I will today. So there you go.
Well, isn't Penne? How old is Penne?
Penne's older. She's 39, but at least she won her last fight. Granted, it was close. I think you could have made the argument that Lupi Godinez won that, but yeah.
This could be a situation of Carolina having her job on the line, right? With this one, but sure. she was about to retire anyways.
Yeah.
So her coming back is a story in itself. So, but I think Penne, she looked pretty decent in her last fight. I think she got her footing in that last one. I think we're gonna see a really different version of Penne in this fight. And in Carolina, there's so many question marks, man. Like, she was supposed to retire, now she's coming back. Like, where is she mentally? We don't know. So I'm gonna take Jessica Penne in this one.
There you go. So I'm going Angela Hill. He is going Jessica Penne for the pick as well. I could see that happening for sure. Let's answer just 2 more questions, then we'll get out of here. Thanks everyone. We've had a really good chat today. Thoughts on Cheyenne Bays? Great win, taking advantage of that co-main event slot. Goes out there, gets a 50K. Good for her. I followed Cheyenne for a while back when she was Cheyenne Vlismas before she got married to JP Bays. Yeah, it's been cool. Good for her. She's someone, if she continues to work and evolve and gets better, she's someone that the UFC can market quite well, because seems like she's improving at a good rate. She's still young. She's easy to market. Don't need to go into that, but you know what I mean there. Like, it's, to me, there's a lot of potential there for Cheyenne Bays. So.
Yeah, man, she could play the game, and her going back to Extreme Couture with Misha Tate and man, Casey O'Neill's there. There's a pretty good, solid group of women training there, and Eric Nixick's her head coach. Again, I think that's going to be huge for her, and her getting back into her comfort zone, man. She looked incredible. That kick was such good timing. It was almost luck too at the same time, because 1 second earlier, that's a DQ loss right there, but it wasn't, man. It was great. And yeah, man, what surprised me the most is DePaula. She got up, man, and she was looking to scramble, and after she got kicked, man. That was incredible to see.
And last one, any update on Daiska, Adam Daiska, that is, and Tanner Boser? You know what? I should reach out to Adam Daiska. So Adam Daiska, for those who don't know, was an undefeated Canadian heavyweight who fought Cyril Gane and got destroyed, and he hasn't fought in MMA since. And I want to know what's going on because there was a lot of potential with him. I know he was doing some boxing, but I think I have him on Facebook. I think Patrick Cote actually, I don't know if he still manages him, but he did manage him at the time. So I'll have to look into that. As far as Tanner Boser, he just finished OSP, so he's probably going to take, I would assume, take the rest of the summer off. It's nice in Alberta this time of year. We're getting some good weather out here in Western Canada. So there you go. So that's it for us. Patrick Cote.
Question. He's managing fighters now? I didn't even know that.
He was a couple of years ago. I know that. And Daiska was one of his clients. And yeah, I remember that was something he was doing. So I don't know if he's still doing it. He's doing commentary work as well. So, all right, good time to wrap up the show here. JHK, do you got anything coming up this week? You did the interview with Dan Hardy and with Rashad Evans. Anything else you got in the works?
Yeah,
let our audience know.
I got a couple interviews in the works, but yeah, go check out my interviews with Rashad Evans. He's returning to boxing. We might see him box at the end of the year on that Shannon Briggs Rampage Jackson card that they're putting together. But he's looking to shop around, man, in return to boxing. And then Dan Hardy, that was a really interesting chat. Talked to him about being a monk in China and training in the Shaolin Temple. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But anyways, go check that out.
Awesome. Should have asked him how he landed Veronica, whatever the girl he's dating. I mean, good for him because he's a lot older than her. So I'd like to know a secret. Although I'm married, I was just joking there. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Tomorrow I'll be doing my weekly MMA Q&A. That's on my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/LynchMMA. So tune in for that. If you didn't get your question answered, just come join me tomorrow. Same time as this, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. No like major interviews this week. I just got back from like a long weekend, so I'm kind of playing catch up a little bit. I do have one. I don't mind mentioning this because I'm sure it'll happen. I'm interviewing Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor, who, I don't know, John, if you heard, he's boxing Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, on the undercard of the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley card. So really excited to talk to Anthony. We did a chat. Actually, he was sparring Jake Paul before he fought Ben Askren. So really excited to get that interview. And then I have an interview with a UFC headliner. Not going to mention who it is because, want to wait till these things sort of pan out on Friday. So keep an eye out for that. That should be for Low Kick MMA, so I'll be keeping tabs on that. And then, just getting back in the swing of things. I love taking some time off, John, but then I always feel like I'm playing catch up. So that's basically what I've been doing the last couple of days. Got a bunch of regional interviews in between there. So that's what I got going on. And finally, make sure you tune in Saturday night, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. JHK and I will be doing a live stream during UFC 265. So if you guys have any questions, you want to watch the card with us, we'll be doing that on Saturday. Really appreciate your support for that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We've been doing them for every pay-per-view since the start of the year, and they've been going quite well. So quite happy about that. For myself, for JHK, for producer Michael, for making it happen, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back here a week today previewing another upcoming notable fight. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the fights this weekend.